So, I want you to think about a truly wild idea, something that sounds like it was ripped straight from a science fiction novel. What if we took the very heart of our digital world, all the data centers, and just launched them into orbit?
Yeah, just let that sink in. The cloud. The very infrastructure that powers our phones, our work, our entertainment. The plan is to build the next generation of it high above our heads. And look, this isn't some far-off dream. It's a multi-billion-dollar plan that's already in motion.
So, what's the big news that got us talking about all this? Well, it comes from one of the biggest names in the new space race and involves a truly mind-boggling number. 50,000. And no, that is not a typo. 50,000. That is the number of satellites that Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin just asked the US government for permission to launch. But it's what they want to do with them that's the real game changer here. The whole thing is called Project Sunrise, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a massive orbiting data center. A recent filing with the FCC spelled it all out, a vision for a huge network of spacecraft that are dedicated to doing advanced computing way up in space. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why go through all the incredible effort and expense to do this? Well, it turns out the reasons have everything to do with the problems we're creating right here on the ground.
This really lays out the core trade-off, doesn't it? Down here on Earth, data centers are just incredibly thirsty. They guzzle unbelievable amounts of power from our grids, and they consume vast quantities of water just for cooling. But in orbit, you've got unlimited 24/7 access to solar power. The goal is to ease the immense pressure on our resources and, let's be honest, operate with a whole lot fewer regulations.
And look, this isn't just me guessing. This is the direct quote from Blue Origin's own filing. They see this as a way to solve a growing problem here on Earth. They're literally framing it as a way to move our heaviest industries off-planet to help preserve our home.
So here's the really crucial part. This isn't just about storing your vacation photos in space. The visionaries behind these projects are looking way, way ahead. They see a future where AI is woven into everything, and they imagine outsourcing all that heavy lifting, all that intense, power-hungry computation to these data centers floating in orbit. But here's the thing. Blue Origin is not alone in this, not by a long shot. What we're really seeing here is the start of a new kind of orbital gold rush, with some of the biggest players in tech and space all trying to stake their claim. Just take a look at these numbers. It's insane. Blue Origin wants over 50,000 satellites. There's a startup, StarCloud, that's proposed 60,000. And then there's SpaceX. They've filed for permission to launch, wait for it, 1 million satellites for their version of this. 1 million. Even Google is in the game. So yeah, this has gone way beyond a fringe idea. This is now a major industry trend. Okay, but having a bold vision is one thing. Actually pulling it off? That's another beast entirely. This whole concept is facing some enormous hurdles, technical, economic, and environmental. Because, as the saying goes, space is hard.
First, you've just got the pure engineering challenges. How in the world do you cool a super hot computer processor in the vacuum of space where there's no air to carry the heat away? How do you build laser communication systems, basically light beams, that are fast enough and cheap enough to connect a whole city of satellites? And how do you protect these incredibly advanced chips from the constant bombardment of cosmic radiation that can just fry electronics? These are seriously tough problems to solve.
And then, of course, there's the money. The only way the math on any of this makes sense is if the cost to launch stuff into orbit absolutely plummets. Pretty much everything is riding on the success of these next-generation, massive, reusable rockets like SpaceX's Starship and Blue Origin's own New Glenn. Without those, this whole idea is just financially impossible. But even if you solve the tech and the money, you're left with some pretty serious environmental worries. The orbits around Earth are already getting crowded. Adding hundreds of thousands of new satellites just dramatically increases the risk of collisions. And what happens at the end of their life? The plan is to have them burn up in the atmosphere, but that could release all sorts of chemicals that might end up harming the ozone layer. So, with all of these massive hurdles, when could we actually see an orbital cloud become a reality? Well, don't expect to be outsourcing your AI projects to space next year. The timeline for this is definitely measured in decades, not years. The first real step was Blue Origin's filing this year in 2026, but from here, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Most experts who've looked at this think that projects of this scale probably won't be up and running until sometime in the 2030s. So this is a very long-term play.
And that kind of leaves us with this one final, really crucial question. Moving all this energy-intensive industry off-planet, it seems like a pretty elegant solution to help preserve Earth. But are we really solving our problems of consumption and pollution, or are we just exporting them, kicking the can into the next frontier? It's something to think about. That's all for this explainer. Thanks for tuning in.